Welcome to the Podcast Lab, your go-to space for raw conversations, curious questions, and inspiring stories from around the world. Whether you're here to learn, laugh, or just listen in, this is where ideas take shape and voices come alive. Ready to dive into fresh perspectives and thought-provoking discussions? Let's get started. This is the Podcast Lab. Subscribe now and never miss an episode.
Welcome to the deep dive, everybody. You ready to get a little strange?
Always.
Today, we're taking a deep dive into stories so strange, so bizarre, they seem like they're straight out of a novel. But these are real events, unexplained encounters, mysteries that'll make you question everything.
Exactly. Those moments where the universe throws you a curveball, something that just doesn't fit neatly into, our understanding of how things should be.
Right. And to kick things off, let's talk about coincidences. You know those moments where you're like, wait, what are the odds? But what if those odds are pointing to something deeper, something we're missing?
That's the question, isn't it? I mean, we're wired to look for patterns, to look for meaning, but sometimes the meaning we find might be more about us than the universe itself.
Okay, so let's test that. Back in 1898, an author named Morgan Robertson wrote a novel called Futility. It was about this massive, luxurious ocean liner called the Titan, deemed unsinkable, until it hit an iceberg in the North Atlantic.
Sounds familiar. 14 years later, the Titanic met a pretty chillingly similar fate. Same type of ship, same claim of unsinkability, same tragic end.
And it's more than just the broad strokes, though, right? Both ships went down in April. Both lacked sufficient lifeboats. I mean, the eerie similarities go on and on. It makes you wonder if Robertson was, tapping into some collective premonition, right?
It's tempting to think so. But before we go down that precognition rabbit hole, let's consider something called confirmation bias. We tend to focus on the evidence that supports what we already believe, while we ignore evidence that contradicts it.
So we latch onto those Titanic parallels because they fit this narrative of fate or prophecy, even if other details don't line up.
Exactly. It's like when you buy a new car, suddenly you see that same model everywhere. It was always there, but now your brain is primed to notice it. Same with coincidences. We seek them out, giving them meaning they might not actually possess.
Okay, that makes sense. But I feel like some coincidences are just too statistically bizarre to just brush aside. What are the odds that two presidents, Lincoln and Kennedy, would have so many parallels in their lives and in their deaths?
I'll admit, those parallels are striking. Elected to Congress 100 years apart, then president 100 years apart, both assassinated on a Friday, both with successors named Johnson.
Whoa.
Even their assassins had 3 names with 15 letters each.
You can't make this stuff up. It's enough to make even the most skeptical person raise an eyebrow. So does this make us rethink how chance operates, or maybe how we perceive patterns in history?
It certainly makes you think. While statistically over the vast span of time and events, improbable things will happen, there's something about these presidential parallels that really taps into our fascination with hidden connections.
Yeah. Maybe it's because these aren't just random events. They're tied to powerful figures, people who shape our understanding of history. So the coincidences feel like they hold more weight, even if it's just our brains looking for meaning where there might be none.
That's a great point. Our human need for narrative, for cause and effect, can lead us to find significance in things that are just, random. But what happens when the events themselves are already strange, even before we layer on coincidence?
Well, then we get stories like the Green Children of Woolpit. Imagine 12th century England. Farmers find 2 kids who speak a language no one understands wearing odd clothing. And their skin is green.
You're telling me this isn't a fairy tale. Green skin. That's got to be some kind of medieval prank, right?
Nope. This is a documented account that baffled people then and still does today. The kids claimed to come from a place called St. Martin's Land, this subterranean realm where everything was green. The boy died, but the girl lived, eventually losing her green hue as she adapted to life above ground.
Okay, so we've got possible explanations ranging from dietary deficiencies to folklore motifs of underworld beings. But what makes this story stick with us, I think, is that it embodies our fascination with the liminal, the space between what we know and what we just can't explain.
Yeah, it's like the Green Children are a literal embodiment of that something's not quite right feeling. And that takes us perfectly to our next story, one that plays with our perception of time itself.
Yeah, if the Green Children make us question, what's possible in the natural world, our next story takes us to a place where time itself might be bending. It's called the Moberly-Jourdain incident. And it happened at the Palace of Versailles back in 1901.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So picture this. You're strolling through the gardens, taking in the beauty, the history, and then something shifts. The air feels different, the sounds are off, and suddenly the people around you are dressed like they're straight out of the 18th century.
And that's precisely what Charlotte Ann Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain, they claimed, happened to them. These two academics, they swore they slipped back in time, encountering figures in, period attire, even possibly spotting Marie Antoinette sketching.
Hold on. A time slip right in the heart of Versailles. I mean, that sounds like a plot from like a time travel novel. But these women, they were serious researchers. They even wrote a book detailing their experience, like trying to make sense of what they saw.
Which raises a question for you, right? Is this a genuine bending of reality? Or could it be something else? I mean, the power of suggestion is strong, especially in a place, steeped in history like Versailles. Could their expectations have, influenced their perception?
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, we know our brains can play tricks on us, especially when we're in an environment that, primes us for certain experiences. But what if they really did stumble into some temporal anomaly? What does that say about, the nature of time itself?
That's where things get really mind-bending. The concept of time slips, of alternate realities intersecting with our own, it challenges our fundamental understanding of, how the universe works. It suggests that what we perceive as this, linear progression of time might be far more complex.
It's like suddenly realizing the ground beneath you might not be as solid as you thought. So we've got coincidences that make us question probability. We've got strange encounters that blur the lines of reality. Where do we go from here?
Well, sometimes those blurred lines lead us right into a full-blown mystery, one that remains unsolved to this day. Let's dive into the case of the Somerton Man. It's a story that has captivated investigators and armchair detectives for decades.
Ooh, I like this one.
Yeah, you'll like this. This one starts on a beach in Australia. It's 1948. An unidentified man is found dead. No ID, no obvious cause of death. The only clue, a scrap of paper in his pocket with the words "Tamam Shud" on it.
Tamam Shud.
Which, for those playing along at home, means ended or finished in Persian. Not exactly helpful for identifying the guy, right?
Right.
But it gets weirder. Weeks later, the phrase is linked to a specific copy of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, a collection of poetry. And someone had found that exact book with the Tamam Shud page torn out, discarded near where the body was found.
Okay, now we're getting into spy thriller territory. So we've got a dead man, a mysterious note, and a connection to a very specific book. Did they ever figure out who he was?
Nope.
Really?
To this day, his identity remains unknown. But it gets even more intriguing. Inside that book, there's a coded message, a series of, seemingly random letters that has never been definitively cracked.
What? A coded message? An unknown identity? A link to Persian poetry? It's like someone deliberately constructed this case to be as baffling as possible.
And that's what makes it so compelling. I mean, was he a spy? Was he a victim of some, elaborate scheme? Or was he just a guy with a, penchant for cryptic poetry who met an unfortunate end? We might never know.
But that doesn't stop us from trying to solve the puzzle, does it? The Tamam Shud case. It taps into this deep-seated need for closure, our desire to make sense of the senseless. It's a reminder that some stories just don't have neat endings.
And that uncertainty, that lingering mystery, can be just as captivating as any solution. It forces us to confront the limits of our knowledge.
Yeah.
To accept that there are some things we just might never fully understand.
It's like we've been on this roller coaster ride through the uncanny valley, huh? From ships that mirror fictional tragedies to green children emerging from who knows where, and then a coded message that might as well be from another dimension.
Yeah. What connects all these stories, I think, is that they challenge our sense of what's real, what's even possible. They really make us confront those limits of our understanding, those edges of our knowledge where things get blurry.
And as unsettling as that can be, there's also something kind of thrilling about it. It's like these stories give us permission to just embrace a little bit of wonder, that what if?
Absolutely. They remind us that reality, it's not always neat and tidy. Sometimes it throws us curveballs, leaves us with more questions than answers. And that's okay. In fact, that's what keeps us curious. It keeps us exploring.
Think about the Tamam Shud case. Even with all the advances in forensic science, we're still no closer to knowing who that man was or what happened to him. It's become like a modern myth almost.
And like any good myth, it speaks to something deeper within us, right? that need to make sense of chaos, the desire for closure, the fascination with codes and secrets. It's a story that reflects our own human struggles, even if we never uncover, like, the full truth.
Which makes me wonder what other mysteries are out there, hiding in plain sight. What stories haven't we heard yet, Just waiting to be discovered.
Well, the beauty of it is we don't know. And that's the allure of the unknown, isn't it? It's a reminder that the world is still full of surprises, full of things that defy explanation, make us question everything we thought we knew.
So next time you hear a story that sounds a little too strange to be true, remember those green children, that coded message on a beach, those chilling Titanic echoes? Reality has a way of exceeding our wildest imaginings.
And sometimes those wild stories, the ones that make us say, wait, what? Those are the ones that teach us the most about ourselves and the universe we inhabit. They remind us to stay curious, stay open to the possibilities, because the truth, as we've seen, can be a lot stranger and a lot more fascinating than fiction.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the extraordinary. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and who knows what mysteries you might uncover.